So we have the pleasure of welcoming Alex Jimenez for this episode of Engati Engages. I'm Aishwarya Sankhe from the Engati team. Let me start with a quick introduction of Engati. Engati is the world's largest open multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots, created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. We run the Engati blog and the video channel, which receives about up to 200,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest. Alex Jimenez is the Chief Strategy Officer at Extractable, a strategic consulting, design, and data analytics agency that focuses on the future of financial services, recognized by Analytica as one of the top 30 influencers in Fintech, blockchain, and innovation. His work has been cited by the Wall Street Journal, the Boston Globe, the Financial Brand, the American Banker, and the Boston Business Journal. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
So let's begin with an open question.
Sure.
Why digital tech and why financial services?
I don't know. I just fell into it. I have an engineering degree, and after school, I went into insurance, which then led to me going to business school, and somehow I wound up at a bank. So I didn't specifically set out to be a banker. I was supposed to be an engineer. And why digital tech? Back in 2009, when the rollout of the iPhone in the US happened, I was part of a department that managed online banking. And given the fact that I own online banking, I then own mobile banking. And so it's just rolled from there. Again, just happenstance, I was at the right place at the right time.
That's really interesting, actually. Do you believe blockchain is here to stay and will fundamentally alter the digital fintech landscape?
Blockchain is here to stay, but blockchain is not going to fundamentally alter digital fintech landscape. We've been hearing that the blockchain is going to change banking for now 6-7 years, maybe 10 years. And many tests are happening and have happened. And the majority of the ones that have worked have been in payments because that is what blockchain is good at. It's good for payments, for crypto. It's good for certain very specific things. But I've seen organizations use blockchain technology where a simple database would have sufficed. And they missed the point of a blockchain altogether. So I don't think the blockchain is going to change banking or financial services. It will improve it in certain applications, but not entirely.
That's really, I'm actually kind of surprised to hear that because you were known as a top influencer in blockchain. So it's really interesting to hear your perspective on it.
Well, there's few of us that keep saying, use blockchain for what it's good for. Don't just use blockchain because it's a buzzword, because it's something that's new or different. If you can solve your problem with a database, with a centralized, permissioned database, you do not need a blockchain. It is best when it's decentralized, when it's open, and there are not many applications from a central organizational standpoint that a bank or a central bank or an insurance company would have. They are all about controlling data and controlling information and controlling funds and controlling risk management. You can't do that in a decentralized model.
So on the topic of databases, what's your view on B2B cloud-based platforms as it applies to
as it applies to banking or financial services? Well, up until a couple of years ago, cloud was a forbidden term in banking or financial services. People were concerned about security. Uh, the the legacy thinking was, if I don't have the data in my shop, in my tech, in my hardware, sitting right here in my office or sitting right here in my facility, I do not control it, and therefore it's dangerous, and I don't want to give up the control. That's changed a bit. However, we've had a couple of instances not long ago, Capital One being the biggest one, where a cloud system was gamed. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it was done by an insider and not someone from the outside. But that proved that to some people that is still a dangerous model, and so there's still friction from the industry to keep everything within house, keep everything on prem, and therefore cloud in any form is not favored. There are, however, more people, particularly as we import more people from other industries into financial services that have had experience with cloud, that thinking is starting to change. And so we do see more and more organizations defining a cloud strategy and going forward with some non-essential data being hosted off-prem, being in the cloud. And so it's changing very slowly, much more slower than in other industries.
Mm-hmm. So how well do you think the banking industry is responding to developments in AI and automation?
AI is another area where we're very much at the beginning. Mm-hmm. The adoption of algorithms and fairly basic AI is mostly in places like fraud prevention and underwriting. We don't see it a lot in customer service. We don't see it a lot in providing better services for clients. Marketing areas within financial services have started to talk about it, but they don't understand it yet. They haven't really rolled it out much. And the proof is for anyone that has a banking account in the US, you do not get personalized information on almost any level. So I'm still blown away by Capital One sending me a happy birthday email every year. And they've done this for like over 10 years. And they're the only financial services company that does that. I mean, this is not AI. This is not complicated. But even to that level of personalization is not happening. So we are far away from what people believe we're capable of, even with the technology we have today. So we're really early on.
So in terms of, well, besides marketing, what could we be doing better to improve AI so that it becomes more accessible to banking and financial services?
Right. Well, for one thing, we can improve what we're doing in fraud. We can improve what we're doing in risk. We can improve what we're doing in underwriting. But certainly being able to support our clients better with offerings that are specific to their needs, specific to what they're doing, and specific to their life. We certainly can do that. And it's not just from a marketing standpoint, but being able to replicate what we used to have long, long ago when people had relationships with a local banker. So back when I was a little kid, back in the 70s, my dad used to take me to the branch and he would talk to his friend who was his banker. And they, by the way, they're still friends. They're both in their 80s. They're retired. They live in Florida, and they're still friends, right? That person knew my dad. That person knew our family. That person understood our needs because he was at that level. Nowadays, it's difficult to do that. And certainly there are examples of people still doing that. But we can replicate that with data. We can replicate that with AI and other tools. And we just are not there yet. And we should be because the capability is there.
So do you believe the interaction model is shifting away to be more conversational intelligence-based in the future?
It should. I tell you, I have a 5-year-old daughter who, when she was 4, she loved Alexa.
Oh my God. My cousin loves Alexa as well.
But we had a problem because she started wanting to have a conversation with Alexa. And Alexa couldn't. It could answer a couple of questions, but it couldn't hold a conversation. And we actually had to shut off Alexa because she was getting so upset that Alexa wouldn't talk to her, right? And, I tell you this because I think that there's a lot of that going on with all of us. To be able to ask Siri or Alexa or some bot a simple question is one thing. But to be able to have a conversation and to have an interaction that really is meaningful, you do need that conversational capability. And I think one of the things that we need to get more people involved in digital and for getting more people adopting digital as a model for service is to be able to provide a conversational interface. And whether that is through a text bot or through a voice bot, I think that is key to a user interface that will make sense for people. And I believe that we will get to the point where we are really just talking to our machines, and we're no longer trying to learn what are the arcane codes or keys or skills that we need to do to be able to converse with or get anything out of our technology. So, we'll be talking to our refrigerators, we'll be talking to our microwaves, we'll be talking to our cars. And so we will be talking to our bank in some form that is not, a person. And certainly where people can come into the discussion is when it gets a little more complicated than what a bot can support, right? But when the majority of phone calls that a bank gets on their call center is for a balance, those sort of things could easily be done by AI. And never mind, it doesn't even have to be AI to be truthful, right? It has to be a good interface in front of a fairly simple model. But, the real basic questions can be handled by AI and everything else could be handled by a person. And we should be there. We should be going to that. But I talk to a lot of organizations, and conversational interfaces are on their radar, but are not in their immediate radar, and they should be. And I'm sure you guys would agree with that, given that that's
definitely. So do you think there's still a place for branches, like physical bank branches, in the digital world?
10 years ago, you would have told me that in 2020 we still had as many branches as we do, that I would have said absolutely not. 10 years ago, I was saying, no way, they'll be gone in 5 years. Obviously, I was wrong. But now what I believe is that at some point, they will be, they'll be similar to landlines, right? To land phone lines, that there will be some out there, but the vast majority of people are not going to be using them. And we're getting to that point in some parts of the world where people just don't go to a branch. In the US, we still do a lot of that. Part of it is because banks have done a terrible job of providing good digital experiences. And so when it's insanely hard to get a small business loan through a digital channel, you just throw up your hands and go to a branch. And so the legacy bankers will say, well, here's the reason why we need a branch, because people are coming to our branch. Well, yes, you're giving them terrible digital experiences. Of course, they're coming to a branch. So there's that part of it. There's still a desire for people to interact with people. And I think coming out of the current crisis, one of the things that we're going to see is a bigger adoption of video. As we're doing right now, where there's going to be more and more people who are going to adopt that. And that is going to drive some of the traffic away from branches as well. But people still are going to want to do that. And it's not just the older people. You actually see some millennials and Gen Zers still going to a branch and actually opening accounts at a branch. And the reason for that is they don't feel comfortable with their ability and their knowledge of financial services to actually do it on their own, even if there's a simple digital experience. So they still go to a branch. So there's going to be a time for that to continue. But as we improve our digital experiences and as we do more applications of design thinking and improve our customer experiences, and we start using voice interfaces and AI and so on, there'll be a time when people are just not going to even think of a branch. That's just not going to be something that it's going to be there. So it's that 5 years from now? Probably not. It's that 10 years from now? Maybe. But certainly the trajectory in the US and in Europe has been just less and less branches. And I expect that, at some point we'll go, oh, finally, they're all gone. I'll be retired by then, though.
Oh, my goodness. Is there any advice you would give someone who wants to pursue a career in digital technologies applied in fintech?
Well, certainly, the fintech companies are hiring developers. That's number one need. However, I see that will only take you to a certain place, right? Fintech companies not only need developers, but they also need people who are designers who are designing those digital experiences that are better than what's out there. But there is some need for people that are outside of technology to help people digitize their thinking and digitize operations and digitize how things are done in a way that's humanly positive. So, just today I was reading about digital anthropologists. It's a new field, right? So I was thinking, yeah, that makes sense, So for those of us that work or have worked at financial services companies that have long histories, companies that have been around for 100 and 150 years, some in Europe that have, been around for 200, 300 years. There is a culture there that is not necessarily open to digital. And those organizations are going to need people who are training in the humanities, people who are trained in psychology, people who are trained in other modalities to help the organization change its culture and to be able to be open to digital experiences. So certainly, if you have the aptitude for being a programmer, and that's the easiest, fastest way to get into fintech. But there are other things, right? There are other disciplines that can take you into a fintech. It's a little harder and it's going to take some time, et cetera. The other need outside of just being a pure developer is info security, cybersecurity. That's more and more important every day. The bad guys seem to always be ahead, one step ahead, and so it's a growing need, and organizations are having a very difficult time finding resources there. So that's another big area where people can focus on.
Cybersecurity, you said.
Yes. Yep.
Just to confirm. Are there any other sound bites you'd like to share with our viewers?
Well, I mean, given where we are today, and I believe that the rosy picture of those people that say we're going to see more and more people adapt in digital, like right away, short term, I don't think that is necessarily going to be happening. I think that what we're going to see is we're going to see people wanting to go back to the social sphere, and you're going to see people who are going to be wanting to be out there more. So there might even be a little bump in more people visiting banks and visiting branches, just because, hey, I can do it. I can go out, and let's go out and go to a branch. And I think that the things that are going to see a bump and increase in interest, particularly from the customer side, not necessarily the organizations, are those things that help humanize the digital experiences, and those things that help connect people. So I mentioned video banking as something that you're going to see more. I think the augmented banker, meaning a banker that is tooled with digital tools, that is helped by AI, that's helped by technology, is going to be something that is going to be the future, particularly in the midterm. So those are the things that I think are going to get a bump in the interest from clients, as opposed to mobile banking. We're going to get a couple more people using mobile banking, but I don't think this is going to be the one thing that gets everybody to adopt it.
Cool. So that was my final question.
Great.
Thank you so much for talking to us. You've really opened my eyes to financial services and banking, and how the future is going to look in terms of banking and financial services. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me.